hate me. You've always hated me. You should just be honest about how much you hate me. In today's story, a group of friends decide to play D&D together, and they find out that one friend is being a bit problematic. Let's throw a salt log onto the fire. This story takes place over 2 abandoned campaigns and one that's still going on. The main cast is Sam, Mark, and Billy the Problem. So I'd like to preface this in saying that Billy and I have always argued a lot. It's not that we didn't like each other, we were good friends, but we just had very conflicting personalities. However, Billy generally got along with everyone in our group. Now, Billy was always a bit melodramatic, but it was never anything concerning. However, after we started playing D&D, it was clear that he was that guy, who even used the stock standard "it's what my character would do" excuse. We started off with our first game, and his first character, a young warlock woman named Valandra. Now, Valandra was an alchemist, so within the first few sessions, she wasted no time getting to work on testing reagents. Every time a dungeon baddie would secrete any kind of goo, resin, venom, or discharge of any kind, Valandra would take it upon herself to collect it, and then pay the barbarian to drink whatever she found. Now, both her and the barbarian were okay with this, so as a player, I had nothing against it, besides asserting it was a stupid idea for the barbarian to do this. But I was playing at the time a very stereotypical, lawful good cleric of life who wasn't about to let his friend poison himself for 5 gold a dose. So Valandra and I came to a head in character, ending with my 8th strength character throwing a punch at Valandra, which was 1 plus strength, which brought my damage total to a whopping 0, that my DM kindly rounded to 1. Valandra responds to my punch with an Eldritch Blast, which, let me tell you, as a 2nd level cleric with only 12 con, 1d10 plus 4 really hurts. Now this annoyed me, but not overly so. We argued about it for a bit, and then he whipped out his eventually all too common, "It's what my character would have done." But because it was the first time, and it was a minor thing, I actually believed him. The next time something questionable happened is when things came to a head in character once again, as the home village of Mark's character and the quintessential starting town was completely flooded due to the party's actions, or rather, inactions. We were supposed to fix a pump, but failed the check, and so we just went home. While most of the party was pretty alright with just moving on to unintentionally drowning the next village, Mark's character demanded we go back. Of course, the party didn't really see what we could do, even if we wanted to, so Sam, Billy, and I all tried to convince him to move on, and we'd help the people instead of the town itself. Of course, he refuses, which, to clarify, this was all clearly in-character stuff. None of us blamed Mark or thought he was being obtuse or obnoxious. So Valandra becomes violent and attacks Mark's character. Mark's character had made threats, so it wasn't completely unprovoked, but it was still out of line. Sam and I both tried to apprehend them, but they were both out for blood. So eventually Sam and I get fed up, and I, now a bard, cast sleep and just say, "I'm done. Whoever wakes up first gets to live. Wanna go get a drink, Sam?" So we went back, and lo and behold, it was Valandra who woke up first and blasted him with Eldritch Blast until he was dead. This leads to another fun story about a bard digging up a grave because he buried his friend with 300 gold on him. So once again, Valandra annoyed us, but wasn't seriously transgressing. She was good for a bit, until the very next session. So Valandra had managed to brew a potion of invisibility, and we as a party had decided to clear out a fort in the swamp filled with hobgoblins. After some fun and clever plans, we were fighting on the walls of the castle, but because Billy knew his potion would wear off if he attacked, he sat out the entire fight. A little later, we were in a pretty hairy fight in the woods outside the castle. Mark's new character, a druid, was surrounded and was getting beat up because Valandra had once again sat out the entire fight, and Sam decides to retreat when things turn bad. My bard, who's already blown through 3/4 of his spells, can only be so useful, but eventually I was able to literally drag Sam back into the fight and help Mark, but Valandra was invisible so my character couldn't find her. We eventually won by the skin of our teeth, but one hobgoblin began running back to warn his buddies. We would have gotten him, but it did cause us to freak out a bit. Valandra finally broke her invisibility after no small amount of pleading to Billy and used reduced bonfire to kill the escaping hobgoblin. After this, Billy demanded that he get his equal share of the experience after sitting out for 1.9 fights. This was the last we'd see of Valandra, as that entire campaign kinda died out. Next up was when Billy was DM. Surprisingly, this went off with few issues. He had a weird insistence that we convert our currency every time we visited a new nation, which was obnoxious when 500 gold was suddenly 320. But that's a minor complaint. Overall, it was a really fun campaign, and I'm sad it died out. Now I'm going to do a bit of a time skip to when Billy tried to set up a second campaign in the same world, which lasted all of one session, but is worth mentioning. As I said, Billy was actually a great DM, but this campaign was just a train wreck. First of all, he invited some new people, which is his right, but they weren't the best of folks, except for one who remains our friend to this day. One was just a chaotic stupid thief, and a birdman who used every chance to act like a pigeon. The worst was seeing a DM who I really liked be super railroady. To this day, we still joke about the railroad gas, as when we talked to the local mob boss, there was an incense burning that made us agree with everything she said and behave. Luckily, leave it up to Sam to be the only one who made his con save and acted like a jerk on our behalf. The worst of it though is when I talked to him about it. Sam, Mark, and I all talked to him saying how we get it if he wants us to follow a certain path, but we don't appreciate being railroaded. We all tried to give honest criticism because we all knew he could be a great DM, and the setting was really cool. But when I mentioned that being a DM was never about saying no, but finding a way to say yes, he absolutely flipped and started railing on me and ended up saying, "Fine, it's your game now. Just take over the whole thing." Going back in time to this darkest of timelines, to when Mark was DMing and Billy was playing an old witch wizard who was once again a macabre lady, spellcaster alchemist, who we called Granny Valandra, much to Billy's chagrin. The first thing he did was pretty much kill my bard. We were investigating a bigger on the inside pot and managed to accidentally summon a big nasty guy inside of it. My bard managed to hold him off while Sam's gunslinger got out of the pot to cover me while I escaped. Before this could happen, however, Billy, who was 10 feet away, decided to shatter the pot while I was in it. This threw both me and the baddie 20 feet in the air, doing a bit more damage to my already damaged, squishy bard. Unfortunately, this left me prone and the baddie had higher initiative, and he used his multi-attack. First attack knocked me out, and the second auto-crit, so I already had 2 failed saves. Come next turn, I roll a 3, and bam, the bard is dead. This seriously angered me because later, Billy rationalized it by saying, "Well, she had no idea what was in there, and it could have been something really dangerous, and I figured you were dead anyway, so I broke it." Despite the fact that we explicitly told him not to break the pot, and that he could have easily peeked in, and still had enough movement to retreat. Or he could have just asked Sam's character, or even just yelled, "What's going on?" But he decided to shatter the pot with me in it, leading to my death. The next situation all happened in one session. Sam's character gets possessed by a ghost. We knew we had to attack Sam to allow him to make more saves, since Sam is a notoriously bad roller. Damage didn't matter, so we were trying to damage him for as little as possible. But here comes Billy, who convinced the DM to kill his character and resurrect her as a Death Knight. Homebrew. And he goes up to Sam and hits him with a Heart Strike attack with a greatsword, doing like 18 damage when we were explicitly trying to hit him for as little as possible. When we chastised him for this, he literally took his character and sulked in a corner while the rest of us fought. Then, not 20 minutes later, as we were looting some jail cells, we find a crown that is obviously cursed. But instead of taking it to our wizard player, or one of our 3 other wizard NPCs just a short jaunt away, she decides to just plop it on the head of Sam's character. Now here comes the beginning of the end. Right after this, Billy begins to throw a huge fit because we're going an hour later than usual. But here's the thing, we also started an hour later, and we only did that because for 3/5 of the party, it was daylight savings. So for us, it was normal time, and we went off the time of the DM. But Billy was just super angry that we were going for our normal amount of time, which, because of daylight savings, was an hour later, even though it was only midnight for him, and he had stated earlier that he had nothing else to do the next day. We promised to address the issue next time, but he decides to go to bed, and the rest of the party pushes on for another hour. Now, about 40 minutes of that hour is uneventful looting and exploring, but in the last 20 minutes, we stumble upon a room with a puzzle where a king must make 3 offerings. We eventually figure this out, and now Sam is trapped in a ring with a small silver dragon who talked to him and asked him a bunch of cryptic questions. Eventually, Sam was asked,
"Over what do you seek to be king?"
And he replied, "All that the light touches." So we jokingly started calling him the king of everything. So the next day when Billy gets online, we jokingly over-exaggerate everything that happened, stating that we fought a silver dragon and got rich, and Sam became the king of the world. To which he obviously doesn't believe us until we show him the Roll20 screen, to which he freaks out. We tell him it was just a joke and explain what happened a bit more realistically, but he's still freaking out about how we always do this and how Mark put this stuff here specifically because he wasn't there, despite the fact that he chose to leave an hour early for a really stupid reason, and that Mark tried to cut the session before we solved it, but we demanded we push on. This began a long cycle that ended with Billy leaving the D&D group and becoming incredibly toxic, asserting that we hated him, until he eventually drove himself out of our Discord group as a whole. I even remember when he decided to leave, he said, "I had a lot of good memories here. Goodbye, everybody." To which I responded, "I'm sorry it came to this." To which he began railing on me. "You hate me. You've always hated me. You should just be honest about how much you hate me." I ended it with a block instead of a goodbye. Billy does have some faults, but I feel that some of the blame could be placed on the DMs for some of these situations. Yeah, Billy was pretty selfish, but I feel DMs do have the power to curtail the blast radius of selfishness and maybe even redirect it. OP says the group is going strong without Billy, so I guess that's fine. But it seems like Billy could have been a good DM if he got his railroading habit under control. What do you all think about this situation? What do you all think about Billy?